Welcome back to the Church Resource, where we talk about all the best resources for churches, leaders, and lay people. I'm Lucas Pinckard, and I'm here with Dr. Christopher Respass. Christopher J. Respass.
Christopher J.
My goodness.
Just call me Sleepy.
Man, we both need naps right now.
Yeah, that's it.
So, speaking of,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
One of the questions I get a lot is whether or not there is such a thing as work-life balance. Like, we've kind of talked around it a little bit in some ways. Yeah,
today,
like we've
Yeah.
talked about, the responsibilities of the minister. We've talked about sabbaticals. We talked about those kind of things. I don't know that we've ever really hit on this in this way. It is a hot button thing. There's a lot of people that talk about, like, oh, you got to have work-life balance. How's your work-life balance? People come into interviews and they're like, well, I want to make sure that I maintain a good work-life balance. That, to me, whenever I heard that as a single guy, I was like, okay, you can't work here.
Right.
But
right.
as a married guy, I would say, especially a married guy with kids now, I would say my opinion of that probably hasn't changed too much.
Right.
In the sense that phrase means so many different things to so many different people.
Right.
That if that's what you're coming into asking about, more often than not, what you're saying is not that, like, my family has priority.
Okay.
Because most often when I hear about work-life balance, it is not coming from family men or,
Right.
that it's coming from somebody who, like, I want to spend more time with my friends in my video games than I do doing this job that you're hiring me for.
Yeah.
So first off, like, before we get into some of the minutiae of all that stuff, does work-life balance exist?
Well, I mean, it obviously exists for somebody. Right.
Yeah.
Like, somebody's got a good work-life balance. But all jokes aside, I mean, yeah, it's super important to, to have that kind of balance, to have dedicated time, for your career, your calling, if you will, and then dedicated time away from that, right? Whether it's, if you're single, having time to unwind and do things that you do, or if you have a family, to be able to engage meaningfully with everybody, in your household. And so, yeah, it exists. It's a thing. But you said it's a hot button issue, especially, I think, for folks that are in ministry, or, very, interpersonal service related type fields, or demanding jobs, right? It's a thing that really does need to be navigated. And I know for myself, I have to work on establishing and maintaining those boundaries, or maybe maintaining them, because they're established in my mind. I just don't adhere to them sometimes.
Well, and that's one of the things I think that is a challenge for anyone who is in leadership.
Yeah.
And anyone, maybe especially, who is in some type of civil service or ministry, is because you're in a position where, if you're in leadership, so many things are dependent upon you. And whether you are, managing a place, or you're in a position where you're maybe in the C-suite or those kinds of things, when something goes wrong, inevitably, it's going to reflect on you.
Indeed.
So whether you're on vacation or you're just at the house chilling, you want to make sure that, like, hey, this phone call that I'm getting, this text message that I'm getting from somebody that I know is at work right now,
Right.
how big a fire is this going to mean that I have to put out tomorrow if I can't help them get, whatever this problem is, fixed right now?
Yeah.
So you've sort of got that pull that's always happening. And then from a ministry perspective, it's like, how dire is this call?
Right.
Right? If it's somebody that they never call me and they're calling me, do I feel more of a pull that's there? Or if it's somebody that I know, hey, they got family members in the hospital, or we've got somebody who's in a critical condition, what's that look like when answering the phone, versus sometimes the guy who, they call just because they want to know, what TV show you're watching tonight, man. You got any recommendations for X, Y, or Z?
No, I don't. Yeah.
But there is also the potential that, like, this is the one time that they're not calling
Right.
to, to just
For
whatever.
that,
So, yeah. So all of those things are in the mind of the leader and of the minister. Anytime that we get that call, one of the things I found like that was really interesting to me. Jimmy Draper's got a book called "Don't Quit Before You Finish," and it's more of a field guide than it is like a book that you would read cover to cover. It covers a myriad of topics, and you can kind of flip to one and then check it out like, oh, what should I do about travel or receiving gifts? We talked about that a little bit in a past episode. Well, when it comes to this in particular, if people would talk to him about, I want to make sure that I maintain, work hours are work hours. And he's like, dude, you're in ministry.
Right.
Right. If you only think that you can minister from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., you're in the wrong gig.
Right. That's right.
But what he does talk about doing is that he made sure he protected like 2 hours a night. So between, maybe it's 5 and 7, or maybe it's between, 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. or 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. You got a few of those hours if you get off a little earlier. That's the time that he protects. Mm-hmm. And it was the time when they could have family dinner and they could do all of these things. And, if somebody called, they leave a message and whatever to make sure he had that focused time in there, but also that he's sharing the load, bearing the burdens with the other ministers there and fulfilling his responsibility as a shepherd.
Right.
And that worked for him and his wife and for their family, that they knew, hey, you know what, when dad gets home, he's going to put the cell phone down, the briefcase is going to go down, and everything is going to stay in another room. And so from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., that was it.
That's it.
And he protected that time. But at 7:01, if they heard the phone on the wall ringing 2 or 3 times, then he was going to go check out what was going on, and that's when he was going to handle the emergency. And because of that, then the community that was around him, the other ministers, whatever, they respected that. And so they knew, hey, you know what? I'll call him at 7:01. If it's a real emergency, we're going to call him at 7:01.
Right.
Because this 120 minutes, it's not that bad to get there. The other thing that he talked about doing is staggering those times. So, you and I are pastoring together, and, hey, this is my kids have baseball practice at, 6 to 7:30, right? That hour and a half. It's like, okay, well, cool. So I'll make sure that, I'm available during that time period. And then, at 8 o'clock, you take 8 to 10 is when you'll take phone calls. I'll take them from, 5 to 7.
Right.
And then you just kind of stagger that time as is reasonable or as the needs of the congregation are kind of suited. Right. So I think that's an interesting way to maintain that separation of career and family in such a way that it allows you to be focused on the number one group of people that you're supposed to be discipling and loving and all of that stuff, which is the people in the home.
Right.
And yet still have an opportunity to do this other thing.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever that is, whether it's, putting out the fire at work or answering the phone call for, somebody who, maybe it's a Bible study leader and they just got the Home One Bible Atlas and they're so excited about it. And they're like, hey, what pages do I need to be looking at for the stuff this week? And you're like, all right, yeah, here's my 5 minutes where I answer that question and walk you through it and whatever. Or the call that we all sort of dread, but that's inevitable in ministry is hey, such and such happened. We need you to come to the children's hospital because this kid's hurt.
Right.
And, it's time to, hey, you know what? Suck it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grab a bottle of water, put on the pastor hat,
and go.
Yeah. And get after it. So, what are things that you do? Like, I think Draper's practice is great. What are things that you do in order to not just find whatever that balance needs to look like in your own home, but to train other leaders to do it so that we don't reach this imbalance of being ineffective in our calling because we're wanting to be selfish with our families.
Right.
And that's a tough thing to try to sort out.
It is tough. And frankly, I don't know that I have it lit yet because I just think the nature of ministry with its ebbs and flows. Sometimes, even when you feel like you have a good strategy for managing the work-life balance piece, right? You get lulled into thinking, okay, hey, it's not that demanding. And then boom, you have a time when it's super demanding for the next, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Not because of the holidays or the calendar, but just the unexpected, unanticipated things that come up.
Yeah,
And
like my dad's heart surgery.
exactly.
Right? Yeah, he had I don't know, we've talked about it. He had an emergency quintuple bypass.
Yeah.
And him and my mom in their home, his room's upstairs. He can't do stairs. And so for the last 4 weeks, they've been hanging out at our place.
Yeah.
But and it hasn't changed too much of our schedule, but it's certainly changed the dynamic of our home.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, and that's on the personal side.
Yeah.
Take it, from the ministry side, all these things that are unforeseen, else you would have planned for them.
Right.
Right. And, they just kind of pop up and they end up putting stress.
Leaders quit or, somebody else is having high stress and they're like, hey, listen, I got to take, I'm probably going to need to take a few weeks off. All right, well, when does that start? No, this is my last Sunday for a few weeks.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. And so I think the first thing is, do your best to be grounded in how you view, your position, your role, and your responsibilities.
Yeah.
Right. I often would say, hey, if I was a doctor, right, I'd be on call or, depending on the type of practice you would have, there would be nights you just wouldn't be home, or you wouldn't be home at the hours that everybody wished you would be home. Or if you were a pilot, right, you can say what you want. I want to be a pilot, but I don't ever want to go out of town. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah,
right?
for
you
sure.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
right.
Flying back from Dallas to San Antonio, hoping that that's going to make the mortgage payment.
Yeah, and so so some of it, is to be grounded and realistic about the career path or the ministry path or the vocation that you're pursuing. The next thing in terms of trying to help guys deal with this work-life balance issue is to encourage them to be bold enough to recognize when we have placed unrealistic expectations on ourselves. And what I mean by that is sometimes we are feeding things within ourselves that we don't necessarily know that we're feeding. What do I mean? Sometimes we have a need to be needed, right? And we don't realize that you don't need to help in this way at this time, right? Somebody's having a tooth pulled. You don't need to be at the dentist for that, right? But there's this part of us.
Dude, that's legit.
You know what I'm saying? You just don't, but there's this part of us because of maybe how we view what a pastor does or how we understand who a pastor is and what they are, that we end up inserting ourselves in ways in people's lives that's just kind of unrealistic in terms from a sustainability standpoint, right? We don't always need to be everybody's savior. In fact, we never need to be people's savior. We need to let Jesus have that, right? But that's an unrealistic expectation that we might have. The flip side of that is the other side of that coin is understanding that people may have unrealistic expectations of you. Well, you're the pastor. I need to, call you about whether or not I should enroll my child in a private school versus a secular school, public school, excuse me. Right. Well, that's a family decision, right?
Yeah.
If you want to know what I do with my kid, fine. But it's not my call to make your choice, to make that decision for you. But there are some people who place unrealistic expectations. If I sneeze, the pastor should be there to say, God bless you, right? And that's unrealistic. And so that's the other piece. I know I'm kind of waxing on, man, but I think sometimes that work-life balance is challenged because of the unrealistic expectations. Then the third area that I try to work with guys on is to compel them to take vacation.
I feel attacked.
Do you hear cricket? Crick, crick, crick. to compel them to take vacation, even if you're the only guy that's there, right? We got to have some kind of strategy. You got to rest, right? It can't be a day here and there because you'll spaz out, right? So, and this is the pot calling the kettle black in a lot of cases because I had to grow to that spot.
Yeah.
Right. I had to get there. And but now that I've done a better job at it, I see how beneficial it is not only for myself but also for the church and everybody that's engaged, right, involved.
The second one, that expectations thing, like that gets pulled in a lot of ways, right? Because when we had our first, right, Levi was in the NICU for 50 something days, right? We were in the hospital for 2 weeks before he was born. And so he was, he was born at 31 weeks and was 3 pounds. And so there was a part of me that felt like I had to be at every appointment. And so, because we worked so hard while, and his NICU stay was first covered with God's grace. Mm-hmm. And second, like some of the ups and downs that we had were really rough. Kirsten got sick in the middle of that. And so there was a whole week where she couldn't come and visit him because she was running a fever. And so, I'm going back and forth between the church and the NICU 3 or 4 times a day, delivering, milk that she's pumped and all kinds of stuff. Right. So there was this expectation that like I needed to be there for everything. And it wasn't until maybe like his 9-month checkup. So at this point, we're talking about a massive amount of this first year of his life where I felt like I had to be at everything.
Right.
And at the 9-month checkup, Kirsten was actually the one, she was like, "Hey, are you coming to this?" And I was like, "You know what? I didn't have it on my calendar, but I can move a couple of things around." She's like, "We don't need you to be there." I was like, "Hold on, what?"
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to be at this. I don't have to be at every, like, it's not like it was his first checkup. It was his first 9-month checkup. Like, I don't have to be there for every little thing. And that was an expectation that I was putting on myself.
Sure.
That I was not a good dad if I wasn't there. Like I was an uninformed dad if I was doing this, or and that just really wasn't the case.
Right.
When it came to that, he needs a parent that's there. If there were questions that I wanted asked, right, I can see if I can pop on a phone call, throw me on speakerphone. I'll listen if I got a question, whatever. Or, hey, honey, here's like the 3 things that I really want to make sure that we get evaluated or looked at, and go from there. That was a tough lesson for me to learn.
Right.
On the other side, there were a couple of things that happened in my ministry where somebody was having what I felt like was a minor operation. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I was told that really stuck with me was that a minor surgery is a surgery that happens to somebody else. Mm-hmm. That, like, if it's you, right, and especially if you're going to go under, that's always something major because you never know what the risks are going to be, right? And so there was a guy I knew who was having an operation. I wasn't feeling well. I'm not going to go up there beforehand.
Right.
So we had kind of talked a little bit the day before, and I was like, "Hey, man, I hope everything's going well." His daughter lit me up the day after the operation. So I talked to him the day before. He has the operation. I'm sending out a couple of texts, and everything looks like it's going good. And she just lit into me the day after the operation. And the reason is because not just that I wasn't there, but I didn't call. There wasn't any of those things. And it made, at first I wanted to be really defensive.
Sure.
Because I'm like, this is an unrealistic expectation that you've got on me. Like, why would you think blah, blah, blah?
Right.
But the truth was that what she anticipated within the circumstances was actually very reasonable. Mm-hmm. To just call and pray with him beforehand. that she wasn't asking me to go up there and to spend an hour with them and to wait till the operation was over or any of those things. But that to her and to her dad, who was having the operation, would have meant a lot.
Right.
And so my own view of the insignificance of the operation that he had, because the day before when we talked about it, both of us were like, oh, it's no big deal. You'll be fine.
Right.
Whatever. Which is probably just guys minimizing what's actually going on. Right. Yeah.
Right.
And then in the other area, my feeling like compelled, like I've got to be everywhere or else I'm not this, that both of those things helped to reset what the proper expectation that I should put on myself is
Right.
whenever it comes to that. And when it comes to things like work-life balance, we were talking about, I think kind of in between episodes, is that there are times when, you find that somebody's at the hospital, you need to say a little prayer and be like, Lord, do I need to go do this right now?
Right.
Is this a drop everything and get over there moment?
Right.
And where you get the answer like, no, it's not. Right? No, you don't have to be at every tooth extraction, but if somebody's having shoulder surgery
Right.
and it's happening 45 minutes away from you, it's probably, if you can't make it to that, right, that may be unrealistic that you are there, do that. You're there and you're taking 3 hours out of your day to go do that. Maybe that's unrealistic.
Right.
What is a very realistic expectation, though, is like, hey, listen, let me know what time they're prepping for surgery. I'm just going to call.
Yeah.
I'm going to call or pray with the family over the phone. I'll make sure that all of our prayer warriors here in the church are kept up to speed on what's going on. And then, go from there. We'll love you, care about you, all that stuff. That there is a way to do this, and it isn't always the grand gesture that we feel like we have to do as pastors
Right.
with the power of our presence as it's felt by other people. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I mean, and I think that's a challenge that I know I grapple with a lot. I'm sure I have irritated some people because I choose to use technology, to my advantage. And what's so weird? Because you said there's a way that you can, pastor people and express not only concern but pastoral care even. But it may not always be in the way that they want it or that you're accustomed. And because you can't be everywhere all the time, right? Like we're not
And it's
God.
useless to try, man.
You listen.
You will burn yourself out if you try.
All the way out. And so I just started. So the odd thing is that, the church culture has changed so much that a lot of people will have a procedure, not even tell you. Yeah, by the time you find out, it's after the fact, right? And so trying to navigate how do you, do ministry the way that you feel like it should be done vis-a-vis the way that the church culture is now with a lot of people being more private, right? Don't want you to know anything. And so I just started using technology, man. If I couldn't get there, and a lot of times I wouldn't, right? Because I'm not the sit in the lobby until you come out kind of guy.
Yeah.
Right. I'm kind of come in, I pray, and we laugh, talk, but then I got somewhere else to go.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in a couple of times when we've talked about like the proper way to do hospital visits.
Yeah, right,
and things like
exactly.
That. And most of the time, once you show up to a place, like that's really what people want is for you to just be there and to provide a little comfort and care and give them some wisdom and guidance, and then to get out, because otherwise they start to feel like, they're like, I can't do X, Y, Z, or like I got to figure out what to do with the pastor, right? And you're like, you've overstayed your welcome.
That's right.
Go there for 10, 15 minutes,
Hit
pray
the
for
door.
them, read them some scriptures, give everybody hugs, and get out of there.
Hey, do what the Holy Spirit said he'll never do.
Yeah.
Leave you.
Leave you.
That's it.
I won't forsake you, but
That's
I
it.
will go get
That's
Wendy's.
it.
I'm out of here. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, man. And so I've texted, I've sent video texts of me.
Dude, that's just so good.
Yeah, brother.
You know?
And because, they get to see your face, you get to, they get to hear your tone, and you get to do something, right? It may not be all that you could have done, but you get to do something. And, And that's just the space that we're kind of in right now. But one thing that you said that, because we've all gotten chewed out or something, had people express their deepest sentiments. and for me,
I got lit up.
Okay.
100%. I got lit up.
Fired up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, what that did is it didn't prompt me to go beyond where I thought I needed to be, but it did cause me to start asking the question. And I'll give an example for you. So when I first started pastoring, we would have funerals. We do a funeral, and the method was to go to the family's house. On the day of the funeral, you pray with them and all this stuff, right? And you would ride, to lead the procession behind the hearse, right, all the way to the church, right? And then I was like, bro, first of all, sometimes they don't even want you to come. But the other thing was, there's stuff at the church I need to make sure is tight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't have time to,
got to make sure the vocalists are there. If somebody's singing at the funeral, I got to
the
make sure everybody
on.
knows.
Yeah, man, all
their
this stuff.
Right?
And so I would be stressed out. And so I moved to, well, hey, I pray real quick. I'm going to get back to the church, make sure everything's okay. Then finally, I just started asking the question, do you want somebody to come and pray about it at the house, or do you want to just meet at the church? People started saying meet at the church. And if they wanted somebody to come by the house, you could send somebody over there. Or you could go, or you could send somebody to go.
Yeah.
But I was, all of that pressure of I need to go by here, and just ask the people. And what I found here lately, they want to meet at the church. They gather in a room. You pray for them there, and then you walk in and you do the service.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, it may not feel like a work-life balance issue, but all that stress that morning at the house, when I'm like, oh my God, I got to get over here and yada, yada, yada. And, sometimes things are still coming together, right? Sometimes things are, you have changes at the last minute. And just being able to spend, another hour at home just kind of cooling out, getting my mind together, or chopping it up with Charmaine or, whomever, right?
Yeah.
Makes all the difference, right? Especially to a spouse who says, quote unquote, you're gone all the time.
Yeah.
Right. I know it may not sound too significant to say that, you got another hour here at the house, man. But if you're hearing that, you're always gone. Or sometimes I feel like, what you're doing at the church is more important than I am. Other people are going out to dinner while we're stuck here at the house eating at home all the time, right? Like, and all of that stuff is very legit.
Yeah.
Because if I could be blunt, you feel the same way on the inside about the exact same things, but you are the one that's got to go out there and make the thing happen, So anyway, yeah. So
yeah, I think when it comes to work-life balance, that particularly for the minister and the spiritual leader, is getting alignment with your spouse.
Yes.
That above anything, that you've got to put in as much effort as you can muster into making sure that those lines of communication are open, and that when something happens where you are out of alignment with that, whether it's because you've had to do too many things, or maybe your spouse is just feeling that, and going to your wife and allowing the freedom in that relationship for her to be able to express that without you getting defensive, you getting upset, and all those kinds of things.
That's right.
It's hard to do.
Yep.
Right, because there are massive portions of the load of spiritual leadership that no one else bears other than the pastor.
That's right.
But the best thing, I loved this quote, and I forget who said it, that he was teaching pastors on leadership, and somebody asked him, what's the number one thing that you would tell pastors, what they need to do? And he was like, love your wives. And this is one of those ways that making sure, and if she hasn't brought anything up to you, check in.
Right.
If you know that it's been a rough season or a rough few weeks, man, do the check-in. Like, hey, you know what? I know I've been gone a lot. Is there something I can do here? Are you good? You know, whatever that looks like within the context of your relationship, doing those things, getting that alignment with your spouse helps to keep your expectations proper for yourself.
Right.
So that you're not overdoing it, or so that you're not neglecting the people at the church, because there may be a time where you're like, hey, you know what? There's been a lot of stuff going on, blah, 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 and you might get something from your wife where she's like, hey, yeah, how come you didn't go do this? Well, because I felt like I need to be home. Okay, well, you need to ask them what they need, but you also, like, you're fine to go do some of these things, and you're keeping yourself here, and it's obvious that you're thinking you might need to be somewhere else.
Right.
So that I'd rather have 20 minutes of attention than 2 hours of split focus.
Come on.
You know, and so there's all of those things that are in it. So remember, work-life balance. It is a thing, but not in the way that we think it is, right? Those scales are never going to be zeroed out. There's always going to be something that wins. But if you've got alignment with your spouse, if you've got alignment with your family, then it's much easier to live in accordance with God's plan for your family and your marriage, and his plan for the calling in ministry, so that everybody's in alignment with what God's purpose is for them. Make sure that you are setting proper expectations, that you are not trying to be the hero. Take vacation. And I love this last one is ask the question, right? What you think somebody wants and what they actually want may not be the same thing.
That's right.
Right? And hey, do I need to come up here? Nah. You know what? If you call me beforehand, great. Or if you get nothing from them, man, shoot that video text. A video text message, you'd be so surprised at how many people are just touched by those really simple things. Well, brother, thank you again for all of this, because this is all stuff that I can go and apply immediately into my ministry. So thank you guys for watching, for listening. Make sure that you leave us a review. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube if you're not already doing it. If you've got a resource or a topic that you want us to cover, shoot us an email at thechurchresource@gmail.com. That's thechurchresource@gmail.com. And until next time, you guys have good. Get Kev. We'll see you.
Holla.